Kayla. Kayla, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I can hear you now. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, it's been quite the day for you, obviously.
Have ended.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the elections have ended in many parts of the state. Okay, a few of the polling units that we went to earlier, you know, it was interesting to see the whole process come to an end. In one of the polling units, you know, there was so much drama at the time when we arrived there. You know, we actually had to keep our phones away and stop recording because, you know, at the time some people were being arrested for vote buying in that particular polling unit somewhere in Owerri Municipal. There's been a lot of events really at Imo East and Imo West. We actually saw some violence in Imo East, like we had mentioned earlier, and in Imo West, you know, there was a story about a particular person who tried to scuttle the process but was arrested in the process of that was in Imo West. But all in all, you know, in most parts of Imo State, it's pretty free and fair, really, if we're going to go by the few people that we have seen and the few places that we've been to here in Imo State. But one thing that really cuts across board is voter apathy. That's one thing that we noticed today in Imo State. A lot of people didn't come out to vote in many parts of the state. There are parts of the state, really, especially in Imo West, where we did see crowds of people. But for a state that had 2.3 million people collect their permanent voter cards, you know, it's a pretty low turnout across board. And then in one of the polling units that I observed, the BVAS was working. When the elections were done and they had done counting and checked the number of accredited voters and the votes that counted in this particular election, because I think there were 3 votes that had to be thrown out in that particular place because of anomalies on those votes. But in that particular polling unit, I think it was somewhere in Owerri Municipal, we were able to see, you know, the counting process was done. All the party officials came together, signed. I think we're going to put that up in our Imo State reports today. The party officials signed, and then, of course, you know, I wanted to see the BVAS personally. I wanted to see the BVAS work with the uploading of results, and we did see that happen. There was an IT person who showed up and said, we would like to start the uploading to the IREV at this particular moment, and I was like, okay, yes, I want to see this IREV upload. And we were watching that upload to the IREV, and it actually happened. And he asked us to actually verify. He said, you know, go online, check. You know, and a few of the party agents who were at that school in Owerri Municipal actually went online and actually saw, you know, it uploaded on their sites. You know, and they were very impressed with that process. So it was very satisfactory, at least for the places that we went to. And of course, you know, people wanting verifications. No, I want to see the stamp. You stamped on the first page. I want to see it on the 3rd page. And INEC officials having to explain that you can't stamp on a duplicate. You know, the original is stamped on. It was pretty interesting to see all of that happen. But you know, the results of this election will be one that many people will be wanting to watch, really, to see how it all unfolds. But all in all, you know, pretty interesting process in Imo State, highs and lows, and of course, seeing that you know, the election results being in particular wards being uploaded to the IREV. We'll put that up in our Imo State reports when we get it together. Seeing that happen was also a plus, you know, to just watch that happen in real time. So those are some of the updates that we have right here. I'm still in Owerri. This is the Okigwe Road in Owerri, and we'll be wrapping up our roving very soon. But so far, lots of positives that we're seeing after the elections with the counting, the sorting, and the uploading to the IREV right here in Imo State.
Well, Kayla, we put it up while you were speaking about the results on IREV at this point from Imo State. We can tell you right now that 56.22% of results have been uploaded. In other words, out of a total of 4,722, 2,675 have been uploaded. And yes, since you say you're in Okigwe, well, is the #1 on the list. I mean, for those who may be interested and can see, Okigwe has 19 polling units and 11 wards right there, and it's also there. But you know, one of the questions that I would want to ask you right now, particularly in continuation of this conversation, is You talked about the performance of the IRF, and we can also see it in the way the beavers. We can also see it on the IRF already. But there were a number of things you mentioned in speaking with some of the candidates earlier about disruptions. You asked the candidate of one of the candidates, I think it was the candidate of the APC, you were asking where the election, where some people who were taking up, that were picked up, where they were sent to, where they were moved to. You were trying to ask him that question at the time. Is any updates on that?
Okay, your audio was a little off there, but I think I understand what you're trying to talk about. The people the gunshots we heard in Ikeduru. I think that's what you're trying to refer to. Okay, so yes, we did ask the PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Samuel Anyanwu, because it was at his polling unit. The polling unit was the one he voted at, and it's very, very near his house. So we were there, and this was before he got there, and we were just, trying to understand why the voting materials hadn't come in yet. Elections there started pretty late, and I remember at the time, we were just wondering, what was going on. Is something wrong with the car? Are the INEC officials on their way? What's happening with the materials? So while we're thinking about all of that, we heard those gunshots. I heard those gunshots. It was sporadic. At first, we thought it was a tire of a car that had, a car had either backfired or the tire was, exploded. But then we stay hearing the shots sporadically, and immediately we stay hearing that, we all had to take cover and wonder what really happened. But one thing we did notice was that there were men in uniform. We did hear quite a number of men in uniform, black uniform. It felt like it was a police uniform, but it was black nonetheless. In any case, so we decided to find out what was going on. No one could give us an update on what it was that had caused the shots that we heard until Mr. Samuel Anyanwu got there and mentioned it while we were interviewing him immediately after he voted. And he said, there were some people who were dressed, according to him, they were dressed in police uniform. That's what he said. He said they came to scuttle the process at this school, and he talked about other places where he felt there were irregularities. So I wanted to find out, what happened with the people who were, apprehended as a result of that incident. And he said he had no update at the time. And at the time, other people did not have an update, on the situation as well. So it's something that's still hanging in the air. Maybe we'll hear reports about it later. But yes, that actually happened at Ikeduru. And of course, we've been trying to get an update on that. And if we do, we will furnish you with that particular information. But for now, that is what happened at Ikeduru, and we were there. We actually saw those gunshots go out. And of course, the PDP candidate also confirmed that happened at the place.
Indeed, Kayla, it must have been quite a scare for you. And, the fact that, I hope it will be confirmed in the short term rather than long term, that those men wore police uniforms. It should be investigated. But another thing that I'd like to follow up on is what was promised as against what has been delivered, particularly at this time when vote counting and sorting should have ended in a number of polling units. You said you were roving earlier on. Can you confirm that the police are providing adequate security for INEC officials as they move result sheets to the collation center?
Actually, at the Owerri municipal area, the security there, in fact, the security is a lot. There's a lot of security. You can hear them blaring around us. A lot of them are escorting INEC materials, actually. That's what's happening around me right now. Yes, there was adequate security, especially at the places where we observed. Adequate security conveying those election materials. We saw them, guarding the whole place and making sure that, troublemakers were kept at bay, and ensuring that those materials are being sent to the proper avenues. And yes, we did notice that at least in the Owerri municipal area. Other parts of the state, we don't know what the details are there, but at least even right now, the cars you're hearing around me, most of them are police cars that are conveying INEC materials, to where the collation centers are going to be, and where all of that is going to be sorted. That will be the next phase of this process. So yes, adequate police security in these areas. I wanted to mention something I heard earlier. I wasn't quite sure what he was saying, but I think he was talking about, uploading of results to IREV. Yes, in the places where we did observe the elections, the results were uploaded to the IREV. I saw that happen, at least in the places where I observed, and I told you we will be putting that up in our reports for what we observed in this particular electoral process.
Lastly for now, Kayla, how about the conduct of INEC officials in this entire process? From what your own observations are, the conduct of our INEC officials, the conduct of civil society organizations who are observers, election observers, what would you say the general assessment is likely to be?
I think when it comes to INEC and they would have to do a lot of inward looking, but what I did realize was that a lot of the staff were very calm. It's a very agitated voter crowd, at least that we noticed. Very vocal, very expressive, wanting to know. I mentioned the story of the woman, one of the party, I think she was a party representative for the Labour Party, I think, at one of the polling units we were at, and they stamp on the top form, but she wanted to see the stamp on the third form, the one they tore and gave her. She didn't see the thing, so she wanted them to stamp again on her form. And I was watching them as they were calmly telling this woman, no, you cannot stamp on this particular document. We've stamped on the first one. You can take a picture of it, whatever you need to do. Just the calmness that was required to handle a lot of the agitated voters that we had in this Imo election. That was nice to see. Even in Ikeduru, where we saw those gunshots go out, the INEC officials were very calm, very, ready to educate, telling people, calm down, listen to this. This is the process. We have to do this. And there are multiple people explaining things over and over. Another thing I did notice was that people with disabilities were treated first. I noticed that across board, especially in Ikeduru, because I had mentioned earlier, we had a lot of older voters in Ikeduru. And, as many people get older, they start to use walking sticks. So when you see them on the line, on the queue with the walking sticks, the INEC officials will come and say, no, come this way. They had a special bench for them, and then they would attend to them first. People who were in wheelchairs and things like that were attended to first. So I noticed that with the INEC officials, at least in places where I observed elections today. So a lot of training has happened. It does seem a lot like an improvement from the last time that we covered elections, and that was the general elections, where people were not very comfortable with, how impatient some INEC officials were. But in this case, there was a lot of patience, a lot of understanding, multiple explanations, getting people to interpret in places where they couldn't. For instance, the guy who uploaded to the IREV at Imo Municipal, at the Imo Municipal polling unit, he definitely could not speak Igbo. He was from the north, and I could hear him say something in English, and then somebody in Igbo would interpret to the person who was trying to say, I want to see this on the IREV right now. He was like, yes, we can do this, and then they will interpret it. So there was a lot of patience and understanding on the part of INEC officials in the places where we observed elections. And, in another polling unit, of course, the place where we heard that some vote buying was going on, and the EFCC operatives had come and picked up the person during the vote buying, we did see a lot of calmness,